I want to start off by saying in this series, we are going to be talking about some sensitive topics. And if any of these topics would maybe trigger you, such as SA, um, CA, I guess you would call it. I'm trying to not end up duping myself here. But in this series, it's going to be sometimes super freaking heavy. So just know that. November 18th, 1978. In a remote clearing deep in the jungle of Guyana, nearly 1,000 bodies lie face down in the mud. Some are stacked, and some are sprawled where they fell. Many still clutch each other in death. From above, it looks like a mass grave, but no grave was dug. This was Jonestown, a self-proclaimed utopia found on socialist ideals and racial equality. But by the time the world heard the name, it had become something else entirely, a tomb built on delusion, paranoia, and absolute control. What happened here wasn't just the largest mass suicide in American history, it was also a massacre. And it started with a man who said he could save them.
Here in Jonestown.
Jim Jones.
Jonestown Commune.
Jim Jones and the People's Temple.
Reverend Jim Jones, the People's Temple.
Jim Jones.
James Warren Jones was born in 1931 in Crete, Indiana. He grew up in poverty, the child of a disabled World War I veteran and a devoutly religious mother. From a young age, Jones stood out. Neighbors remembered him holding funerals for small animals, preaching on the street to anyone who would listen. He obsessed over power, faith, and death. He wasn't just interested in religion, he was obsessed with it. Jones bounced between churches in his youth, absorbing Pentecostal energy, faith-healing tactics, and the emotional pull of charismatic leaders. He was fascinated by figures like Father Divine, who combined religious authority with political messaging and social activism. Jones studied them closely, mimicking their style while perfecting his own approach. By the 1950s, he began preaching a blend of Christian rhetoric and Marxist ideology, slipping political messages into his sermons. To him, the pulpit was more than a platform for faith. It was a vehicle for revolution. He saw himself as a prophet, and increasingly, he demanded that others see him that way too. In 1955, Jones founded the People's Temple Full Gospel Church in Indianapolis. Its message was radical for the era. Jones preached racial integration, economic equality, and a vision of socialism wrapped in spiritual language. He welcomed people of all colors and backgrounds, especially Black Americans and the poor, into his congregation. At a time when segregation still ruled the South and racism ran unchecked in the North, this made the temple a rare haven. He adopted children of multiple races, created housing programs, and built a reputation for doing what other churches wouldn't. From the outside, this seems like a totally great idea. But it definitely depends on who's doing it. Obviously, as we know now, in hindsight, not this guy. Shouldn't have been this guy, if I'm going to be honest. And it worked. Jones gained local support and national attention. His charisma was magnetic. People genuinely believed he could change the world, or at least their lives. But behind the kindness was something else. a need for control. As the temple grew, so did Jones's control. Members were encouraged or pressured to turn over their income, their homes, and even their children. He recorded confessions and used them as leverage. He separated families, staked fake healings using chicken livers, and drugged followers who stepped out of line. Jones didn't want just devotion. He wanted absolute obedience. Members were told their loyalty would be tested through suffering. They were forced to confess false sins in front of the group, enduring humiliation or suffer physical punishment, all in the name of spiritual purification. Discipline houses were set up and loyalty tests blurred into psychological torment. He told them the outside world was evil, that only the temple could protect them. To challenge him was to betray the cause. The cause here, I'm assuming, was his ultimate control over everybody. And publicly, Jones was a social crusader. Privately, he was obsessed with loyalty, surveillance, and psychological warfare. Temple members were often sleep-deprived, overworked, and isolated. Their worlds narrowed until Jones was the only voice that mattered. In the late 1960s, Jones moved the temple to California, first to Redwood Valley, then San Francisco and Los Angeles. The West Coast offered more progressive base and more opportunities. He built churches, formed alliances with politicians, and embedded himself in local government. The temple's social service, free meals, housing, legal aid, won praise. And Jones courted the press, presenting himself as a revolutionary spiritual leader. He was photographed with California Governor Jerry Brown and met with Vice President Walter Mondale. Local officials attended his sermons, and the temple delivered votes, filled buses with supporters, and played the political game very well. But cracks were forming. Defectors spoke of intimidation, staged miracles, and public beatings. The deeper you were in, the harder it was to leave. And those who tried were harassed, threatened, or worse. Jones began preaching about conspiracies, CIA plots, assassins, and coming apocalypse. His sermons became apocalyptic, fueled by amphetamines and paranoia. He declared himself the only truth teller in a world of lies. In 1977, New West magazine published an expose with first-hand accounts from ex-members. Rather than face exposure, Jones made his move. He led over 900 followers to a plot of land in Guyana, South America, where he had quietly been building a remote settlement, Jonestown. It was billed as a paradise, a sanctuary from oppression, but the reality was far harsher. The jungle was sweltering, isolated, and unforgiving. The soil was poor, supplies were scarce, and infrastructure was fragile. Passports and possessions were confiscated. Letters were monitored. Armed guards patrolled the camp. Even communication with the outside world was controlled. Visitors had to schedule trips months in advance, and any letters sent home were carefully curated, often dictated, rewritten, or rejected by Jones himself. What was supposed to be salvation was now a cage, and Jones's voice, broadcast over loudspeakers day and night, become the only one that mattered.
See if you can make it to any railway. See if you can get to any passport. Try. I dare you to try. You don't know who you're talking to. Just because I don't use the language of the church, I am that which they call God.
The daily life in Jonestown was grueling. People worked 10 to 12-hour days under the sun, building homes, farming, and attending lectures. Meals were meager, medical care was limited, and Jones's sermons, once spiritual, now revolved around loyalty, obedience, and impending doom. He warned of U.S. invasions. He said spies were everywhere, and white nights, fake suicide drills, became routine. People were forced to drink what they were told was poison, just to test their loyalty. Some resisted. Many were too afraid. Others genuinely believed they were building a better world. But fear ran through everything. If you disobeyed, you were isolated, beaten, or drugged. And if you wanted to leave, there was nowhere to go. Back in the U.S., relatives of Jonestown residents were sounding alarms. Some hadn't heard from their loved ones in months. Others received identical letters with suspiciously perfect grammar. A group called the Concerned Relatives formed, including Tim Stowen, whose young son, John, was still in Jonestown. The group lobbied Congress to investigate. They collected affidavits, press clippings, and survivor statements, anything that could force action. The U.S. Embassy in Guyana was flooded with questions, but offered few answers. Behind the scenes, the temple was pressuring diplomats, discrediting former members, and spreading misinformation. Jones painted the Concerned Relatives as government spies. He told his followers that if their family members came looking, it was to destroy their paradise. Any contact with the outside world was a threat, one that had to be neutralized. California Congressman Leo Ryan answered the call. He was known for bold moves and unfiltered investigations, and he made it clear he wasn't coming quietly or alone. In November 1978, Ryan flew to Guyana with a small delegation of journalists, aides, and concerned family members. They wanted to see Jonestown for themselves.
I'm going to shoot somebody in the ass like him so bad so long, I'm not passing this opportunity up. I don't care whether I see Christmas or Thanksgiving, neither one. You don't either.
At first, Jones kept the mask on. Visitors were welcomed with song and dance. Temple members gave glowing testimonials, some genuine, others clearly staged. Some said they were being held against their will. Jones grew erratic. He paced, sweated, and rambled. By the next day, 15 defectors had asked to leave with the congressman. On November 18th, as the group made their way to the airstrip at Port Kaituma, Jones made his move. A tractor trailer pulled up with armed temple gunmen. They opened fire on the group without warning. Congressman Ryan was shot more than 20 times. NBC cameraman Bob Brown captured footage until the moment he was gunned down. Reporter Don Harris, photographer Greg Robinson, and defector Patricia Parks were also killed. Others were seriously wounded, including Ryan's aide, Jackie Spear, who survived by playing dead. It was the first and still only assassination of a sitting U.S. congressman in office. Back in Jonestown, Jones gathered the community. He told them the congressman was dead, that American forces were on the way, that their only escape was revolutionary suicide. The pavilion filled with hundreds of people, many confused, some terrified. Jones sat on a raised platform, flanked by loyal aides and armed guards. He spoke calmly, like a man closing a meeting. A vat was prepared, grape flavor aid mixed with cyanide, tranquilizers, and sedatives. Children were killed first, often by their own parents. Babies were given poison through syringes. Adults followed, some willingly, others at gunpoint. Recordings of the event captured screams, cries, and desperate pleas. A few resisted. Some begged to live. But the armed guards surrounded the pavilion, ready to shoot anyone who tried to run. Jones told them to not be afraid, to die with dignity. The death was just a passage. By the time it ended, over 900 lay dead. Jones was later found with a gunshot wound to the head. Whether he pulled the trigger or not remains unknown. This is a horrible tragedy. And I want people to realize that sometimes these cults do go this way. And there are cults out there today that maybe they aren't ending this way, but they're still, obsessing over people that leave and stalking them and harassing them and everything like that. So I do want it to be known that not every cult ends this way. I'm not in a cult, but not every cult ends this way. And not every cult clearly looks like a cult. And we'll go into that in episode 11. By the end of the day, 918 people were dead. Over 300 children. News coverage was immediate and harrowing. Images of bloated bodies sprawled across the jungle floor shocked the world. How could so many die so blindly? Why didn't they flee? Commentators asked if this was mass suicide or murder. Some blamed the victims. Others saw them as hostages in a nightmare. The phrase "drink the Kool-Aid" or "drank the Kool-Aid" entered pop culture, but it's cruelly inaccurate. Most didn't die by choice, and the drink wasn't Kool-Aid, it was Flavor Aid. The U.S. government faced sharp criticism. Warnings had gone unheeded, letters were ignored, survivors were few. A handful lived only because they were away from camp, on errands, or stationed in the capital. A few hid in the jungle. Odell Rhodes, a temple member, witnessed the final moments and later testified before Congress. The event left a permanent scar, and for many, the trauma never faded. Jonestown reshaped America's view of cults. It exposed how easily good intentions can be hijacked by charismatic leaders, and it proved how isolation, manipulation, and fear can lead to tragedy on a massive scale. The People's Temple began as a promise of justice, inclusion, and community. It ended in horror. Not because of what the people believed, but because of who they believed in. Jim Jones convinced hundreds that the world was against them, that death was better than life under tyranny. And when he felt his power slip, he took them all with him. Jonestown is more than a cautionary tale. It's a monument to what happens when devotion is weaponized, and a reminder that even the noblest dreams can become nightmares when the wrong person holds the light. And it really kind of makes you think back to maybe some of the people that you've met in your life. I know it makes me think of one person in particular, from a Facebook group I was in. This guy was all like, "Oh, we're gonna get this property out in Sweden or something like that, or Norway, and it's going to be just like a Viking compound, and everybody's going to have like a job and this and that and this and that. And like, he had messaged me and was like, I'd like you to be by my side and this and that. And I'm like, okay. And like, my brain went, this doesn't seem right. It seems very culty. So I immediately just disbanded myself from that group of people and went a different route. I don't know what they're doing now, but I advise that you pay close attention to the way people talk and how they present themselves. And you know, there's just some people out there that at the end of the day, they do not have good intentions. In this case, Jones never, I mean, I can't say he never had good intentions, but what I can say is his intentions became bad. So that'll do it for episode 1, The People's Temple, of the Cult Classic series, brought to you by Cracked Relic. Again, sources will be in the description and coming up in the credits after this. And thank you for watching.